Awesome. So to now set the agenda for what we are going to be talking about, there's going to be multiple speakers joining us. So you'll see speakers cycle in and out here. We're going to cover what is Ethereum for everybody. What are misconceptions of Ethereum that we should try to fix. We're going to dive a little bit into base and native rollups, what they are. Justin's going to help us define them. We're going to talk to all the L2 founders who are present at the space today about how that fits into the L2 roadmap and the L2 visions. We're also then going to dive into some of the base native builders that are here today, talk about what the biggest challenges are, what progress looks like. Then we're also going to dive into, as Justin said, the social layer, right? Like, how do we all work together beyond technical considerations? How do we foster this sort of non-technical coordination as well as we all move in lockstep as one Ethereum? Um, and if anyone has questions, by the way, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. We might bring some of those questions up if we have some time towards the end as well. So without further ado, we're going to kick this off with a real rapid fire round robin. And there are two questions. The people on Spaces speakers can answer either or both. So the questions are, number one, what is Ethereum to you? What is Ethereum? Number two, if you could change one misconception about Ethereum, what would it be? So just to repeat, what is Ethereum to you? If you could change one misconception about Ethereum, what would it be? Who'd like to go first? Please feel free to unmute.
I'll take it. Hey, everyone. I go by Night Elf on X here, but I'm Andrew from Kraken and Inc. Let's see. What is Ethereum? I think it's at Kraken we're very libertarian and free. We shoot guns and everything, and to us this feels just an extension of that you can bring your wealth, your hobbies, whatever it is, to something that's a very open permissionless network. It's kind of the original, theme and vision of Ethereum or blockchain in general. So we just like the freedom of being able to manage your entire wealth, bring it somewhere, and just have the best UX possible. That goes into the misconception though that I think we have kind of like an issue on UX, and everybody likes to talk about that and make memes and make fun of us, whatever. But that's why this talk is happening and why we're solving it. An extension of that too is the application layer. I think even though this is a heavy kind of tech chat and we're talking about how to solve some of those UX issues, interoperability within Ethereum, we don't focus enough on the fun and kind of like discussing how people can just easily open up an application and you're immediately on chain. I think as Ethereum as a whole, we can always push the fun and the applications more.
Can I take the next? I'm O Yang from Snarkify. We are a high-performance GPU computing team in ZK. What Ethereum is to me, I think Ethereum is a computer science field where we want to put a dent in the universe. That's for me and for our team. The misconception, I believe that people say Ethereum ecosystem is fragmented, where all the L2s are competing against each other and weakening Ethereum layer 1. However, the reality is, I think the shared interests far outweigh the competition between the layer 2s, especially in the face of external challenges. So I believe Ethereum's growth is everyone's growth. That's why we are here today to talk about Ethereum's future. Yeah, thanks.
I can go next. Hey everyone, I'm Kubi from Gattaca. What is Ethereum to me? So I'm an engineer, and to me Ethereum is a platform that anyone can build on, and I guess also a platform that anyone can interact with. In terms of misconceptions, similar to Andrew, I would say the big misconception is that Ethereum is slow. And again, something we're trying to solve here with base pre-confirmations, that Ethereum actually can be super performant and fast.
All right, I can hop on. What's up, y'all? I'm Ben, one of the co-founders of Optimism. I mean, I think, what is Ethereum is, to me, ultimately, it's like a movement, right? Like Ethereum started exciting me at a social level, kind of along the veins of just like seeing not only what the power of the technology was, but like how people were intending to wield it, which I think speaks a little bit, like Andrew, to your perspective on freedom. It's permissionless. But all these things ultimately, to me, boil down to we want a new substrate to replace the cloud and put it on steroids. So I don't know. That's what Ethereum is to me. I think that shifts to like as you move to the L2 centric roadmap, that moves to like the root of trust of the world computer, but it's ultimately a movement to build the world freaking computer, baby.
Hey, I'll jump in. It says my connection was lost. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I guess it wasn't. Hey, I'm Steven. I'm co-founder and CEO of Offchain Labs. We build Arbitrum at a layer 2. We also build Prism at a layer 1. To me, Ethereum is two things. Very much echo and agree with what Ben said, which Ethereum is basically the people and the community and the values and the mission that we're trying to do, right? It's just some of the best and most incredible thinkers and smartest people in the world trying to build a better, fairer, more open and more permissionless system. And that's the nice thing about Ethereum is we have that vision and we can evolve the tech, evolve the community, even evolve the values if we feel the need to make sure that we're constantly on par to achieving that vision. And so I would say in terms of on a technical component, but also mixing in sort of what I think is a misconception. Ethereum is not the EVM, and we see this in two directions. We can do things that are non-EVM in Ethereum. For example, we build Arbitrum Stylus, and we see EVM used in other ecosystems that are completely not Ethereum, not aligned with our values, not even necessarily open and permissionless ecosystems. So I think Ethereum is really about the values and the focus that we have, and that focus is actually on security and decentralization and openness and permissionlessness as paramount. And so on a technical level, if I had to say, I'd say Ethereum is Ethereum secured block space, right? So the idea is that Ethereum provides this base layer that's value driven, that's security driven, that's decentralized. And the idea that we can now expand that into layer 2, that is all Ethereum. It's Ethereum secured, it's Ethereum aligned block space.
I'm gonna jump in. Hi, I'm Uma. I'm one of the co-founders of Succinct. We're building a zkVM that hopefully makes it easier to scale Ethereum and layer 2s securely. I think a lot of great answers have been said about what Ethereum is to people, and I think one of the best parts about Ethereum is it's many different things to many different people. For me, it's just it's a developer platform that offers a bunch of really cool properties like censorship resistance, verifiability, global access to users, and amongst many other important characteristics. One misconception that I think is around that I'd like to see more people talk about is I think at its core, Ethereum is really building a product for its users, for its developers, for all the builders. And I think it's really great if more people start talking about Ethereum, the product, so that we can have that mindset as we decide on core roadmap features.
Hey everyone, Brett Carter here from Risk Zero. We built the first RISC-V zkVM and are building Boundless, which is a coordination system for zk provers and verifiable compute. Yeah, what's Ethereum? I think what attracted me to Ethereum is a new paradigm for trust, and that's still really what keeps me here. Like the idea of digital sovereignty and financial sovereignty is so key to freedom overall, and the fact that we, as more of our lives move into the digital world, can really provide that to anybody who has access to an internet connection is just such an exciting and revolutionary concept. And I guess like from the perspective of what like a misconception that I could change is that sometimes it feels like we're stuck in this paradigm where we need performance at all costs. And I know we certainly need to improve performance, and that's what native rollups are about, and base rollups, and there's a really strong I think technical path to getting there. But really at all costs, really invalidates that value proposition that I mentioned, the digital sovereignty, this new sort of substrate or fabric for trust. We can make a lot of compromises that would compromise on that initial principle. And I personally really appreciate how Ethereum has stuck to its principles in prioritizing censorship resistance, liveness, etc.
Hi, I'm Tom Lehman, co-founder of Facet, which is the only rollup actually live today without a security council. And when I think about Ethereum, I think there's this like famous like quote from like my classics days where there's this guy Diogenes, the cynic, and he's in the forum eating lentils, and his friend comes up and says, "If you would just learn to flatter the king, you would not have to live on lentils." And Diogenes responds, "Well, if you would just learn to live on lentils, you would not have to flatter the king." And so when I think of Ethereum, I think of a platform, a platform where king flattery is not required. You know, that's the number one thing. Can you actually, you know, in the analogy here with centralized systems, can you escape from constant king flattery? And at the same time, you got to make the lentils taste good. But I think if you're working on Ethereum, you have your priorities, which is it's worth it to eat some lentils, to go through some hardship, to be able to escape the total dominance of centralized players in this world, corporations and so forth. For me, the biggest misconception on Ethereum, maybe this is a little in the weeds, but I've been thinking about this a lot recently. When it comes to rollups and L2s, I think by far the biggest misconception is embodied in the phrase data availability layer. When you say Ethereum is your data availability layer, you're kind of saying, oh, I just put my data there, people can read it. But it kind of ignores this fact that Ethereum puts the data in order for you, and the ordering determines the truth of your system. So I think of Ethereum also as a truth determining layer, and I love it for that.
I guess I'll go next. Amir, one of the co-founders of Buffer. We have started so many DeFi primitives that are ongoing around LRTs and other things. And recently, from past year, we started delving into using the permission set of the validators that we have to jump into base sequencing and also pre-confirmations. Ethereum to me, and I guess like everybody else on this call recently, has been everything. I think we've been all on this front of trying to um, like solve all the misconceptions to everybody. And I'm so happy that Ethereum Foundation is hosting a space today. This is like one of the best things that can happen. Another thing that I wanted to say, like everybody else, crypto started because we wanted to own our own money. And I think Ethereum is a great extension to that because it gives programmability to it. While all the predecessors couldn't do it, we couldn't bring all the financial systems to it. Ethereum enables us bringing the financial system on chain, and that's what Ethereum is to me. One misconception that I think is going to be a good segue to the next topic is if current rollups go based, they're going to like not be able to scale, or they're going to lose sort of their income, or their income is going to go lower. That's why I always ask this challenging question: is for how long are we going to stay small? For how long we're not going to be able to scale to trillions of dollars of assets on their Ethereum? Um, and without base sequencing, perhaps today we might not be able to achieve that soon enough. This world computer that we have to put it to work so all the rollups can work together. All these teams on the call have done amazing job like improving the rollup landscape. We just need one more step to scale it to the final step where we can then onboard trillions. An example that I give to all of the users, like normal day-to-day users that are not technical, is look at all the payment systems that you have today. They're amazing. They're worldwide accepted, like Venmo, Stripe, others, etc. Like nobody really thinks what infra they're running on. Base sequencing and base rollups are a roadmap to achieve that in the future. We can have applications on Ethereum that the users wouldn't even feel while they're running on. And base rollups are just a precursor, are just like one item on this roadmap that gets us to that final destination where we can have amazing applications and users don't have to be confused where to go. Thank you.
Shall I go next? I think there's nobody else. I'm Fede from Lambda class. We're building Rogue on L2 based rollup on hopefully native too. We're also working with different partners to bring minions on chain. I hope to be able to share some news in the next few months related to that. To me, Ethereum is the only resilient decentralized computer that exists, since it can tolerate network partitions. It has 5, if I'm not mistaken, execution on consensus clients. We're also working in an execution on consensus client, and hopefully we'll have 6. That's the technical aspect of what Ethereum is. But it's also, to me, it was crucial because it enables people in places like Argentina, Turkey, or Nigeria to get paid for the work they do. We couldn't exist as a company without DAI or USDC nowadays. On Ethereum, it enabled value creation because we couldn't even get paid. It's a movement at the end that kills the middleman. I believe that that's one of the most interesting things that Ethereum enables. It removes human interaction from places where it's not needed, so that humans can cooperate and do things that are more interesting than sending money or trusting each other on things where we shouldn't trust each other. We should use a computer for that, a decentralized computer. The 3 things where I believe that there's some misconception around Ethereum. For me, Ethereum never was about the EVM on Solidity. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of the EVM, neither Solidity, for different reasons. I hope that RIX5 on ZK enable to use other VMs or to use other programming languages. For me, Ethereum is more the consensus part on its resilience, on availability. And also, one thing that mostly the Solana people say about Ethereum is that it is slow. I think, as Kubi said, that in the next few months we're going to see that with pre-conf on base, it's actually going to be faster than almost every L1 that exists. So those are the 3 misconceptions I think that exist nowadays in the market.
Awesome. Is there anyone else, or have we gone through everybody? Okay. Thank you all for your answers. This is fantastic. I mean, it's really really great to hear everyone's simple why, and it's really cool how aligned all of the answers are. We stand as separate teams, but we move as one Ethereum is kind of one way to maybe put it. And this whole coordination attempt, where we're all kind of dedicated our lives towards building for this broader, expansive, massive thing, is a testament to that. Like coordination is absolutely our superpower, and it's moments like this where we get to prove it to the world. Speaking of that, there's someone on stage here, Josh Rudolph, who has been putting in a monumental effort to help Ethereum itself coordinate, especially around the realm of interoperability. So we'd love to dive a little bit, Josh, into what does Ethereum Unity mean to you? What have you seen over the past years, months, weeks, that has pointed towards that? And yeah, where are we heading in that realm?
Sure, yeah. I guess the short version is I've seen a lot that it makes me very bullish in our ability to execute, and really this has nothing to do with me, although I appreciate the kind words. It's been amazing to see people from all across the community step up and dive in, do the really sort of heavy lifting that's needed in a short time frame over the next few months to accelerate real solutions that we can ship to real users. And so to me, like that's been the most exciting thing to see is that people are coming in, setting aside some priorities that they have already established for this year, and are recognizing that this is actually the most important thing we can do across the entire ecosystem. And so to me, like that's really what I think about when I think about unification. It's not this sort of like pie in the sky, overly idealistic thing where we hold hands and hope people go against their own interest. It's recognizing that making sure that using all the chains across Ethereum actually feels like a seamless, unified experience is the most important thing that we can do. That we do have shared incentives there, um, and yeah, I guess just on top of that, like the high level themes that I keep coming back to are these themes of pragmatic and ambitious collaboration. Yeah, it's about recognizing where there are these shared incentives and showing that yes, we have to come together to accelerate Ethereum as a technology, as a protocol, and doing so requires this balancing of short-term execution and long-term vision. And I think if we can stay on top of all of those things, make the sort of walk the balance there, then I'm really bullish on our ability to ship things to users here in the next few months. And it's certainly a big challenge, and there's lots of different ways that we're sort of exploring different design spaces here. And if anyone has thoughts, I'm getting lots of messages over the past few weeks and months, which has been amazing too to see. Anyone that I might have missed, please ping me again. And yeah, just excited to see what we can ship here over the next few months.
So speaking of shipping, speaking of design considerations, the title of the space is base/native rollups. So, we want to educate everybody. Like, what is this? What does it mean? What does it mean for Ethereum? What is this design space? How are people exploring it? What are the realistic expectations out of it? Where do we go from here? And of course, there's no one better to kick us off except for Justin Drake. Justin, if you would like to explain a little bit about what base/native rollups are, where it's headed, why it's needed, and would love to get an introduction on the topic.
Absolutely. But I guess before that, I want to give a shout out to Josh. He has done an absolutely monumental effort behind the scenes. And he's always open, easy to ping. He's out there doing excellent work. And thank you so much. Follow him on Twitter. And yeah, even though he's not very present publicly, he does do behind the scene a tremendous amount of work. Okay, so in terms of based and native, my mental model is that Ethereum as a world computer provides multiple services, and the most basic one is settlement. And if you choose as an L2, as a blockchain, I should say, to become settled on Ethereum, you become an L2. But then there's optional things that you can do that brings you closer to Ethereum. So one of those is that you can choose to consume Ethereum data availability. And if you do that, you're set to be a rollup. And if you don't, you're set to be a Validium. And one of the statistics actually that I just checked now is that roughly 90% of the TVL chooses to be on a rollup versus being on a Validium. So there's like significant value to being closer to Ethereum. And I guess what being native and based is further optionality for L2s to be closer to Ethereum in some way or another, above and beyond settlement and data availability. And specifically, the two axes where they can become closer to Ethereum is sequencing, in the case of base sequencing, where you basically have the L1 validators play a key role in the ordering of the transactions. And then native execution, where the L1 validators play a key role in validating and executing the EVM transactions. Now, in the case of data availability, for a very long time, people didn't realize that it was there as a resource, and it was kind of a hack where people started realizing that they can use cold data, which was not designed for data availability originally, as a means to consume data availability at scale. And then, Ethereum went down this path of really making it more convenient for L2s to consume that resource with the blobs. And I think we might see something similar with the based and the native execution. So in the case of based sequencing, people don't really realize that you can actually have the L1 validators do the sequencing for you. We're so used to this paradigm of centralized sequencing that we've kind of forgotten that this is even an option. And there's very good reasons why we moved away from we're using centralized sequencing for security reasons, for UX reasons, for MEV reasons. But all of these technical things, I think, will be addressed relatively soon. And then in the case of native execution, today it's just fundamentally impossible for you to have the exact copy of the EVM, which means that if you're designing a fraud-proof game or a snark circuit for your EVM equivalent rollup, almost certainly there's going to be a bug. which is potentially an attack vector where your whole L2 could be drained. But there's another problem, which is about maintenance. Even if you somehow manage to have an exact copy of the EVM logic, the EVM itself is a living beast, a living specification. And so if you want to remain EVM equivalence, you need some sort of governance mechanism to allow to adapt. But that governance mechanism, whether it's a Security Council or something else like a governance token, that is an attack vector that can also drain all of the funds within the rollup. So yeah, ultimately, what the way that you would become a native rollup is through this this precompile called the execute precompile, which allows you to tap directly into the EVM state transition function. But I guess I've talked enough, and really what I'd like to do now is to open it up to some of the people here to explain why they think becoming base or becoming native is valuable. And I guess I'd like to invite Andrew first, because Andrew was not part of sequencing call 17, and so I guess we have potentially a lot to learn from Andrew. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Cool. Let's see. Yeah, unfortunately, I was traveling that day, so I was very bummed to miss it, but I watched it later. But the thing that excites us the most, I think, is really around, like, one of our core pillars is UX. And as I said before, there's this misconception that Ethereum kind of has this like UX and fragmentation problem. So we're really excited about this, seeing the interoperability with the L1. Of course, we're an OP stack on the superchain, native interoperability there, but it coming more to the L1 and like really giving that experience of, if a user is on some L2 and they see an application somewhere else, it really should feel like you, like in the Web 2 sense, you're just going and creating like a new account on some new, product, right? You're going to Google or you're going to Facebook. It kind of just feels like that again. Right now, it's, as we all know, it's kind of, you have an application somewhere else you want to use. The user has to now kind of learn about bridging and thinking how they're going to, do that. How are they going to get over to that other L2? Is it on a different tech stack? Do I have to do some multiple hops? So we see based rollups really helping, and native sequencing helping with that interoperability with the L1. You should be able to tap into shared liquidity applications that are on the L1. Yeah, we're really excited about that.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, there's this term that I think the near people invented, which is on bridging. Right, we want to remove the bridges. We want to just have the synchronous calls that we're all used to, where you can take a flash loan from someplace, you can feed it across multiple contracts, and all repay your flash loans all in one go. And even though 90% of the TVL is in rollups versus validiums, if you zoom out one layer, 90% of the TVL is on the L1. So like right now we have this power law distribution, 90%, 9%, and then 1%. And I think what we want to do is basically try and push more and more value towards the rollups. But in order to do that, we need the rollups to start inheriting the security of Ethereum. Essentially, what we want is World War III grade rollups. And today it's kind of rollups if we have these security councils and we have these bugs everywhere. Thank you so much, Andrew. I guess next up we have Paul from Polygon, who also wasn't on the sequencing call. Paul, do you want to share your thoughts? He actually might not be in the speaker list. Approved. There we go. Yes.
So many calls, so many Telegram groups. So I'm going to say that I'm interested in how all of this comes together, because at Polygon, we are like 100% on the path of sovereignty. And I think working at Polygon puts one in this very interesting position of being on the inbound of a lot of applications and a lot of application ideas. And one of the things that we see is that there is just a whole lot of desire for innovation, and how all of that innovation comes together is like one of the core conflicts, or one of the core things that's difficult to manage when you're trying to move everything to not necessarily to the base layer, but being secured by a single base layer. There's a lot of tensions that arise from it. And I think one of the interesting things, and something that excites me about the native rollups discussion, is that what we're seeing here coming out of all these discussions Justin is having is a new sort of thinking around the design of applications that can really take advantage of some of the properties that we're getting from the verifiable computing stacks, from Succinct, from RISC-0, from the ZK work that Polygon has been doing over the past few years. And I think that in reality, the only way we're going to actually give people the amount of space that they need to build the businesses that they want to on top of these things is to kind of rethink and expand the application design. So where I'm not totally sure that native rollups are 100% the right solution, I'm not totally sure that based rollups are 100% the right solution, and I would love to see a bunch of different options of these come to the fore. I do think that the way that we're starting to think as a group of Ethereans, or whatever we want to call ourselves, is actually moving in a direction which gives people the optionality to be flexible and to be interesting. It's my opinion that at the end of the day, we all want to coordinate, and we all want to feel seen, and we all want to have our ideas be out there, and we all want to like build value for ourselves and for the world. And in order to do that, we really need this core sovereignty. And there's something here where that can actually get in, and it could be a little bit greater than just Ethereum. It can be that we're really trying to compete against the real issue, which is the existing systems. So thanks, Justin, for kind of pushing forward on getting those ideas out there. Really glad to see things like the ZK dashboard, where we could see actually how long it takes, and we can stop hiding behind this idea that it's just too slow or too expensive, and we can start trying to build these solutions.
Yeah, I think this is a great point, that ultimately this is about increasing the design space and giving more optionality for the rollup. So if these L2s want to become based on native, well, they can make their individual decisions. And in some sense, becoming based and becoming native, is becoming a little bit more boring, right? Because you're like strictly EVM equivalent, or you strictly have the same sequencing set as Ethereum L1. But we should also embrace diversity, and that's what makes Ethereum unique. And I think so far we've been really good on the diversity, and now it's about providing option and counterintuitively for being more homogeneous. So if you do choose to become based and native, or one or the other, then you're adding a little bit more homogeneity to the mix, and you're in some sense reducing friction and potentially increasing network effects. But if you have an awesome reason, like a 10x reason for not being boring and homogeneous, then by all means, that should be encouraged and celebrated. I guess I could open it up to anyone else who has an opinion. Or we could have Stephen come in. Stephen, I know you weren't able to join the call in person, but you did leave a message that we played, a recorded message. Happy to let you speak, or anyone else.
Hey, thank you. Yes, glad to actually be here in person this time. And thank you, Justin, for accommodating me last time. Yeah, I think, hearing, Paul and Justin, I kind of agree that we need to find, the thing Justin just said, I think really hit the nail on the head. Really need to find the right balance between conforming and homogeneity, and also the diversity and experimentation. If you ask me, if you look at even this call alone, I was going to say the Ethereum community, but this call is representative. The best and core strength that we have is that we have so many different teams and so many different people with lots of different ideas, but all want Ethereum to win. So I think we need to coordinate, but the coordination, to echo what Justin just says, needs to, make the things we're all doing the same more efficient and right, not do repeated and redundant work. But there's also a place for diversity and change. As Justin said, if like there's a very good reason for that, and I think that there, we have to really find those points today, right? So there are lots of things that we're doing that are all of us doing the same thing. And if there are ways which we can make that more efficient, like refactor our code to say, hey, why do we need to do that? Why are we all like trying to make our own wheel when we could just like standardize the wheel? That's fantastic. But I don't want to lose that flavor also of us all having different ideas. In our case, I think the prime idea is Arbitrum Stylus, which is shipped on mainnet, which gives you the ability to write Rust and C and C++ programs. I think that's a very big contribution to the Ethereum community and one that we'd also don't want to lose. So I guess the flavor that I like here. So there's two things. So there's number one is like I think it's great to have base and native rollups as an option in the ecosystem, and I think it's fantastic. But it also would encourage others to continue to think about what do you want to do that's different or non-conforming, and let's not lose that as well, because that's what makes Ethereum different. The fact that we have so many different teams, and I get concerned that if we all row in exactly the same direction, some of that room for experimentation would leave, and maybe some of that interest would leave. But that being said, I don't think that's a binary either. I think Vitalik, in his post a couple weeks ago, really nailed on the head. Is like, how can we have our cake and eat it too? In the sense, can we build a base and native rollup system that's extendable and expandable? And that's the vision that I think I'm most excited about. I don't know how to do it, but hey, this is like the goal here is to talk about research direction and visions, right? So the first problem to figure out is not how to build it, but what do you want to build? And the thing that I'd love to build is how do we build a system that is a has native execution for the EVM, and anybody can tap into that. And then there are many rollups that might say, hey, that's all we want, that's all we need. We're perfect. We just want to be a fully native rollup. But other rollups, like Arbitrum One, which wants to do stylus, can we build it in a way that says, hey, it can use EVM, precompile for can use EVM native execution for the EVM parts, but it's also in a way that's extendable, in Vitalik's words, to bring your own prover. So all in all, very, very excited about this direction. And I think that there's definitely a place for pure native and pure based rollups. There's also a place for a lot of diversity and innovation, and figuring out ways we can marry those and get the benefits of both, and eliminate the redundancy of our work, I think would be the most beneficial thing that we can do. We all want to work together and make Ethereum win. And I think, the very fact that we're even having this call is step one to do that.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. And I think in addition to diversity at the technical level, we want more diversity at the user level. And one of the paradoxical things is that some users actually want boring. So if you take a financial institution, for example, they want the most boring thing possible. They want it to be maximally robust, maximally like the L1. And there's a project out there called Etherealize that is essentially using base rollups as a mechanism to onboard financial institution. And it really resonates with them, because if you don't have a centralized sequencer, that's not a legal choke point for a large financial institution. And actually, I want to bring up Fede on a similar topic, which is that maybe other entities like nation states also wanted boring. And by unlocking the ability to be more like the L1, you unlock potentially new actors to onboard to Ethereum. Fede?
Yes, so I honestly didn't know. I just saw the line on the doc that mentioned the topic. I cannot share too much, but I will share the minimum that I can. So for the last year, I have been traveling too much. On one of the reasons is that we have been seen by some actors as an independent force that is pretty harsh on criticizes too many things, but that also makes it very, I don't know if there was some bias, because I obviously have biases, but authentic, I would say. They started asking us questions on help on this came from very big corporations outside Europe on the US with too many millions of users in different regions in the world. They were trying to choose which technology to use, either Solana, Ethereum. After almost 1 year, this week I finally could convince them to use Ethereum. They're very interested by zk2 on the focus of the community on long-term games being a protocol using very advanced cryptography on caring about decentralization, but also about being boring. As you said, Justin, the last year we invested quite some money and we work with many teams in the industry finding security bugs in different implementations. Recently, a very top-notch team found a big security bug in one of our projects that is live in production. So I think they like that. Many institutions like the fact that there's a big community of people that have different economic incentives, but we try to protect all each other, because if there's an issue on these things, we all would fail. Even if we have differences, I think we have very similar shared values that unify Ethereum as a community. So one of the things we're doing, I can give some example. We're trying to create I think Abstract Chain was doing something similar, but more for I don't know if I would say more degen. But they provide Abstract Chain, the L2 provided a unified experience for people. And we're trying to do the same for different countries and different ministries, where they need very simple things that in countries like the US or Europe exist, but in other places in the world you cannot trust. For example, land registries, where the intermediary changes the information and there's no way to see if the information was changed. Transfers of money between different countries and banking systems that have different Web2 systems that are very complicated in different languages with very bad specs. So I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see many of these systems live. Me personally, I'm working on a project that should be live in a few months, and hopefully I will be able to share it. On base rollups and native are a big thing for this, because we need the liveness guarantees on the interoperability with the L1 in case we need to move things between two L2s. On native is also very important, because we want to make sure we don't depend on only a few people that can get kidnapped or can have an issue on there could be a security bug. So these two things, I will be honest, at the beginning I was a little bit skeptical around base rollups. Native rollups for some reason clicked in 2 minutes. It was pretty simple to me. But base rollups at the beginning, I didn't fully get it. With time, I saw that it's a perfect solution for the things we're building. In crypto, since I have been in crypto, too many teams have been saying we are going to work with big institutions and countries or whatever. So I don't want to do the same. I think this is different. There's very, very big people behind it. We're just the technological provider. And hopefully it should be live, and we will be able to go live on this. Will bring millions of users to Ethereum, and we'll need the help of everyone. We have our own opinion, but the project is so big that, for example, I can mention now, we're using RIX0 on SP1 because we want to have two provers. We don't want to depend on anyone. We will probably add another one. So I think it's going to be an interesting project where we will need the help from the Ethereum Foundation on so many other companies.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fede, for the teaser. I appreciate you can't share too many details, but you did tweet recently, "I'm having the most important meetings of my life, and hopefully this will bring millions of people on chain." Excited to see how this evolves. I guess next up, I'd like to segue to the native rollups specifically. And also talk to some of the infrastructure providers. So the way that I see it is that with native rollups, we have an opportunity to move in two separate phases. Phase one would be to have the execute precompile, for which there is an ETH research post, be enforced through naive re-execution. And the really cool thing about this is that it can, first of all, happen quickly, potentially next year, but also unlock the full potential for optimistic rollups. And the reason is that when you have re-execution, you're going to be bottlenecked by a gas limit. But for optimistic rollups, they only need to call this execute precompile when there is a challenge, which almost never happens. And so the gas limit constraint for the execute precompile is not a constraint for the actual L2. And then phase 2 would be to enforce the precompile using SNOCs. And here we can have vastly larger gas limits because the validators would only have to verify small SNOCs for which the verification time doesn't depend on the gas limit. And this would allow for, I guess, pessimistic rollups where you can withdraw not through an absence of proofs over a period of 7 days, for example, but over the presence of a proof. And that would allow for much faster withdrawals. So I guess for stage 1, I'd like to ask a question to Ben Jones around what would be the ideal timeline for you to have this execute precompile, and what would you like to do to try and help achieve this timeline?
Next week, bro. Can you get it to me? I think it does make sense to be doing these things in multiple steps, and certainly I agree that re-execution is an easy one. I think to me, a lot of it boils part of it comes down to where do the specs land and how do we think about those use cases? You talk about the idea of doing these interesting little stateless kind of validity proven via re-execution rollups. I want to see numbers on that. You know what I mean? This is a situation where we can't afford to raise costs dramatically, and it could be a big ask to re-execute everything. I think the other unknown piece of the puzzle that we need to solve is what we call derivation in the OP stack ecosystem. But every L2 has a form of this. It's what are the rules by which basically L1 transactions, be it the posting of call data or deposits, and almost always both, get turned into actual execution payloads that we can pipe into this API. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, my perspective is this surely needs to come soon. I don't think it's going to be a bad move. I think it's the right direction to take it. It's a logical first step. I do think the devil is in the details, and I think it would be too soon to do this before we start seeing at least design docs and the beginnings of specs of how different L2 ecosystems would actually implement this behavior or integrate this behavior. And maybe to your point, Justin, this should come first as the form of new experiment rollups that are hey, we're going to try proving everything up front and see what happens. So I think that could be a valid direction for Ethereum too. But to share kind of the optimism perspective, ultimately, I think we need to have a spec of how these things all work together end to end and be able to with some degree of confidence and a lower degree of unknown say this is how it's going to work and it's going to integrate great. So obviously I don't think that should slow down work on just getting the basics. We need to statelessly verify an EVM. That's kind of not going to change in any of these worlds. But to me, when the rubber hits the road is once we have some of that infrastructure in place and we can actually look at those APIs and compare them to the APIs that have been built out by the various L2 tech stacks and see what is actually going to be able to stick. So anyway, maybe it's a non-answer, but that's kind of my perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, for the optimistic rollups, really, there's going to be no constraint on the gas limit, even if we have enforcement for execution. And in terms of the derivation pipeline, I think there's kind of two things that need to be done. Step 1 is making sure that we can cleanly decouple the EVM state transition function as a submodule of existing rollups. And that is basically just a proof of concept, a viability check. And then the more long-term goal is saying, hey, can we take what's outside of the state transition function, the so-called derivation pipeline, and make that also maximally trustless and not have security councils for that part? And it's possible the answer is yes. Once it's based on native, there's just a few lines of code and there isn't much going on. You just need to handle deposits and withdrawals and very minor things. Or actually, no, this is a really complicated piece of logic, thousands of lines of code. It's impossible to formally verify. And we need a second precompile, a derived precompile, that would kind of handle most of that burden. And so again, like I like this incremental approach. Okay, we have, I guess, an extra 10, 15 minutes. I'd like to open it up to the ZK people on the call to talk about real-time proving, because if we want to have an execute precompile with a huge gas limit, think 100 times larger than what we have today, we're going to need real-time proving. And I'd like to know when these teams think we'll be able to get real-time proving. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can jump in and talk about SP1 and where we are today in proving Ethereum blocks and where we see 2025 going. So our latest release of SP1 called SP1 Turbo is really, really fast and low latency at proving Ethereum blocks, especially when you can execute the proof on multiple GPUs. So I believe on a single GPU, it can take like 10, maybe around 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the block, how much gas is being used, stuff like that. But if you're able to generate the proof across many, many GPUs, which is actually what we do in our kind of cluster setup today, proof generation time for an Ethereum block can go down to 30 to 40 seconds, depending on the block. I think for real-time proving, we need between like 4 to 12 seconds, depending on kind of the protocol, whether Ethereum implements the delayed state route, which I think Justin has mentioned is in the roadmap. But yeah, even today with SP1, proving an Ethereum block is 30 to 40 seconds across many GPUs. So we're only, 3 to maybe 4x away from having real-time proofs, which is really awesome. And I think the timeline for that will be in 2025. That's like one of our team's top priorities, and we'll definitely be able to get there. It's just a matter of engineering and a little more efficiency.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Uma. So one GPU takes 10 minutes, 600 seconds. If we have ideal parallelization and we have 100 GPUs, 600 divided by 100, 6 seconds. That's well within the 12 seconds. And these GPUs are getting better. The algorithms are constantly getting better. And yeah, achieving it this year, it will definitely be amazing. And I'm so pleased to hear that it's a top priority for Succinct. I guess next up we might have Ouyang from Snarkify. Or Brett from RiskZero. Do we have either? No, we don't. Okay, I mean, we can move on. I guess I could try and respond because they have made public statements. Hey.
I was going to say, I could say some things here from Polygon 2 as we're working heavily on this as well.
Oh, yes, please.
So, obviously we're working heavily on this where, our work has, formed the base of a lot of what's happening here. And we also have efforts moving towards real-time proving, looking at things. And I would say that the interesting piece about this is when Uma says it's just a matter of engineering, is that in a way, I think that's true now. And there's, and this is the big kind of unlock that maybe is not really well understood yet by the broader community. And it's maybe not something that we want users to care about, but we as builders should care about, which is that the technology in these proving systems is becoming commoditized, it's becoming cheap, it's becoming fast, and it will be used everywhere. And it's no longer a thing that we need to think, oh, maybe someday we should use that in order to make things better. The answer is, it is a thing that we must use to make things better because this is the right solution for many of these problems. So I believe at Polygon, we have, with our work on real-time proving, it's largely about changes to the way that you structure proof generation can take out a lot of the latency. And while I think it's great for Ethereum to get down to maybe 6 and 12 seconds, I believe that we can actually get much lower than that. And that's when things become very interesting for everybody. Because, when we talk about sovereignty here, we're talking about, getting this really good base layer that takes 80% of the cases and then being able to push that harder. And so I'm really excited about that, where 80% of the cases are covered, and the 20% can really push the metal down. And we can unlock our teams and Uma's teams and Risk Zero's teams to do this low level optimizations that make stuff fly. So it's coming, it's here. We shouldn't question it. We should lean in and make it a part of the roadmap for sure.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, when I think of real-time proving, there's kind of two flavors in my mind. There's the next slot real-time proving, where you have a whole slot, for example, 12 seconds. And then there's the same slot real-time proving, which is hard mode. And, because you want to maximize MEV and fees, you want this to be as low as possible. And something on the order of 100 milliseconds might be the end goal. And hearing you say that we're going to get latencies well below 6 seconds is music to my ears. But as a first step, getting it under 12 seconds will be a massive unlock. We have Ouyang who joined.
Snarkify's answer to the real-time proving is to go under 12 seconds by June this year. We are very concrete on our engineering roadmap. So look, high-performance computing is like the second nature to the Snarkify team, because most of people know us for our 6 Z-Prize winnings across GPU, FPGA, and Wasm. So thanks to the open source contributions from teams like Risk Zero, Polygon, Valida, Succinct, and many others, teams like us can solely focus on GPU proving at the speed of Y. So our internal engineering roadmap is enable real-time proving by June. According to our current progress, we are highly optimistic and confident about our roadmap. We are even looking beyond that, because essentially real-time proving is that your proving speed should outpace the rate of on-chain gas consumption. So for example, right now, base gas throughput is 15 times or 20 times more than the Ethereum layer 1. If a proof system could achieve 20 times more of the current throughput, real-time proving could be possible even for the base layer 2. Achieving that is not trivial, but it's not distentical. For example, if we can enable a proof system that can scale out by throwing more GPU devices to improve the scalability of the proof system, it's actually quite doable. But the key challenge is to eliminating the serial bottleneck within the proof generation process. We are actively working on solving this problem. Yeah, quite optimistic about enabling real-time proving for layer 1 and start looking into real-time proving for other high throughput layer 2s as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Ouyang. Wow, I didn't realize real-time proving in June. That is really amazing. The last I heard from you was within 6 months, but June is in less than 6 months. And yeah, coincidentally, Ouyang was in Cambridge recently, so we had breakfast together. And my understanding is that he and his team is completely rewriting the SP1 prover to have extremely high performance on GPUs with all sorts of custom and novel optimizations, and it's one of the strongest teams out there. As Ouyang said, they won many Z-Prize competitions. Do we have Brett from Risk Zero who'd like to close this off, this section? No. Okay, so let's move on quickly to the base infrastructure. So here we have different problems. We don't have the SNARK technology problems and the derivation pipeline coordination problems, but we do have, I guess, implementation problems around the pre-confirmations, as well as standardization problems. So I'd like to invite Drew to briefly chat about Fabric and his effort around standardization for base rollups. Okay, looks like Drew's not here. I guess if Kubi or Francesco would like to talk about some of the implementation challenges and progress regarding pre-confirmations, feel free to jump in. Kubi, you joined us in as a speaker. The floor is yours. Yes.
Okay, nice. So, I mean, so we've been working ever since the beginning of last year on a couple of test nets and mainly focused around L1 pre-confirmation inclusion and adaptations across the L1 sort of block production supply chain in order to facilitate pre-confirmations. And I think most of the heavy lifting has been done there, and I think most of the infrastructure is basically almost ready for production. But more recently, the focus has been to actually enable rollups to tap into some of this infrastructure. And I would say, from my perspective at least, there aren't any major technical challenges. It just requires more mind space or mind share to be dedicated towards some of the problems that are still open. So, for example, there are still some questions around composability, around blob sharing, and then also when we think about the full spectrum of becoming fully permissionless based sequenced, there are still some open design questions around mechanisms. For example, how we deal with MEV and uptimes and things like that. But I think overall, the biggest challenge is not so much a technical challenge in the short term, but it is to essentially coordinate across teams to align on an implementation that the ecosystem is happy with. And just because there are so many opinions when it comes into the specific implementation detail, there's definitely need for better coordination, which is why this whole Fabric effort is very much welcome. And so in the short term, however, there are a few teams now that are actually shipping initial implementations of a based stack, so to speak, that then actual rollups can experiment with, whether it's on a DevNet or actually progress further to a testnet. And that is actually now being shipped and we should potentially see, like, from multiple teams implementations over the next couple of weeks towards the end of the month. So all of that to say, short-term problems are being solved and code is being written and systems are being shipped. And they are, if we progress towards a fully permissionless based sequence stack, there's still some open design questions. But overall, I wouldn't say they are problems or challenges that are unsolvable.
Thank you, Kubi. I love the optimism that it's all solvable challenges, and I do want to give a shout out to Gattaca for really pushing this effort from day one. They've been there for the dev nets, for the test nets, for the proof of concept pre-confirmation that we got on mainnet. They've been a driving force behind commit boost. They're also working with various other base rollups as a technology partner. And actually, just